DmC, Devil May Cry, which I guess means the title is Devil May Cry, Devil May Cry. The demo is now out, and many of you have had a chance to look at it. I've posted some videos of some of the lower points of the demo, but despite its many flaws, it's actually better than I thought it was going to be. I was expecting an unplayable mess, but what I got was something that does qualify as a game. It's playable. If you turn the music off, you might even get some enjoyment out of it. The biggest problem that this game has is that they chose to call it Devil May Cry, when it very clearly is not Devil May Cry. It's another game entirely. It's completely different. And I'm not talking about what they've done to the characters in the story. There's no need to further beat that dead horse. I'm talking about the gameplay. The best way I could put it is that it's almost as if a completely new game is trying to wear a cheap Devil May Cry costume. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's take the elements of Devil May Cry that are present in the new Devil May Cry. That boils down to character names and the iconic sword and handguns. Now, let's take those elements and replace them with something else. Suddenly, the game has become completely unrecognizable as Devil May Cry. The controls, the way the game plays, the rhythm, everything. It's so far removed from what Devil May Cry is. Instead of having access to all of your ranged and melee weapons with a single button tap, you are instead given the ability to shift between stances. There's an angel stance and a demon stance, which are activated by holding down the left or right trigger. Holding down a trigger, or not holding down a trigger, dictates what your attack buttons do. It's not a bad system, but it's not Devil May Cry. I've been told that it comes from another game, Heavenly Sword. I've never played it, but by looking at the controls, I can see that stances are activated by holding a trigger. So that's where this comes from. It makes sense, as Ninja Theory also made Heavenly Sword. Another huge issue is the complete removal of the ability to lock on. A very bizarre choice for a game like this. Lock on has been part of Devil May Cry since the very beginning. It allows you to keep an enemy in your sights, and more importantly, lets you know what you're going to be swinging at. If you don't know what you're going to be swinging at, the best you can do is guess, and that's not good. It also affects how your character moves around the field, providing a central focus point that you can strafe around. Having the ability to lock on also vastly increases the number of potential moves you can perform. Without the ability to lock onto a single point, you can't have directional inputs, because you'll just move in that direction. For example, locking onto an enemy, pressing forward, and then attacking, or away, or to the side. So, there's no lock-on, and therefore no directional inputs in this game. Instead, the criteria for attacks is limited to this. Are you on the ground, or are you in the air? What button did you press? How many times? And did you pause at any time? Did you hold the button? Are you in angel, demon, or neutral stance? And that's it. Now let's imagine if the game did have lock-on. The number of possible inputs increases dramatically. Not only that, but you can keep enemies in focus, even when they're in tough places to see. Never again will you use that grab move and not really know which enemy is going to get pulled over, or which enemy you're going to pull yourself to. Even if this game wasn't named Devil May Cry, I would still recommend that they include lock-on functionality. I mean, what do we gain by removing it? Does the game somehow become better? They're using 2 buttons for dodging. Why not put lock-on there? I just don't know. I don't understand what they were thinking with this one. I don't understand their logic. And that brings us to styles, one of the most important advancements that was made in the third game. They are nowhere to be found. So there's no Royal Guard, there's no Gunslinger, nothing like that. This is particularly devastating, because having on-the-fly style switching in 4 was so good. There are so many different combinations that I am still discovering things in this game. I love that magic suitcase. It's so good. Alright, enough about what's not there. What about what we've got? Well, for starters, the highest difficulty feels really, really easy. Now, to their credit, they did throw in some new enemy types on the higher difficulty. Also, enemies initiate their attacks more often, which is to say more than none. That's all well and good, but I never feel any sort of pressure. There's no fear of death. There's also not a whole lot of enemies on screen at one time. And sometimes, and I don't understand what I'm doing to make this happen, but sometimes a large portion of a pack of enemies doesn't even spawn, leaving me with just one guy. I know we're on a different engine, and I'm not expecting anything Legendary Dark Knight level. But if I'm not feeling pressure, then it's not a whole lot of fun. Another issue is our Angel weapon. It's not very useful. It doesn't do very much damage, and it doesn't offer much in the way of utility. On the other side of things, the axe absolutely wrecks everything. It seems like there might be some balance issues here. In what seems like the game's solution to this problem, there are enemies that can only be harmed by one specific weapon. The ice guys can only be harmed by the angel weapon. I'm guessing because it's blue. And the fire guys can only be harmed by the demon weapon. I'm guessing because it's red. This is very unlike Devil May Cry. One of the staples of this series is that you would gain access to a large amount of weaponry, but every weapon could be used. There's no enemies in the game that can only be harmed by Cerberus, for example. You pick what you need based upon the benefits that the weapon provides or your personal skill level with it, not because you can't hurt the enemies without it. Just like you pick your style to suit the situation. I'm a big fan of Beowulf and Rebellion myself, but I know what can be done with Agni and Rudra and Cerberus if the situation calls for it. Never quite got the hang of Navon though, that's on my list. There's one more thing they put in there that I really wish they didn't. Unskippable cutscenes. Now I find these to be unacceptable in any game, but this is a Devil May Cry game, or so the title says. You're telling me I gotta watch this every time I play the level? Why? And even the boss battle has cutscenes scripted into it. You can just tell that they're all gonna be like this. You know, if I wanted to watch the 2012 remake of They Live, I probably wouldn't. I'd probably go watch the original. But seriously, the only game that's allowed to be a movie is Metal Gear Solid. That's its thing. This is an action game. The more you make me watch, the worse it gets. I don't care if you have story bits, I'm fine with that. But they gotta be skippable, because in all likelihood, I only need to see them once. This whole reboot situation is really unfortunate because, at least from a gameplay perspective, if nothing else, I can see the potential in this game. Now at the time this video is being made, it's completely mediocre. No one would be paying attention to it if it wasn't for the title. What the game desperately needs is some major work done on the basic mechanics. Right now it feels like it's trying to be two different games. The game it wants to be, and the game that it's named after. And it fails on both fronts. Fans of Devil May Cry have been raging pretty hard over this whole thing, and it's not hard to see why. The franchise isn't that old, but it's got some very high quality and very important games in it. The original Devil May Cry practically created its own genre, and then Devil May Cry 3 came along, and many people believe it still hasn't been topped to this day. If I could have 4 style switching in 3, that's the perfect game right there. Throw in the atmosphere and level design of 1 while you're at it. This new game is simply not Devil May Cry. A nice middle ground that would have satisfied everybody would be taking this new game and calling it something else, and then develop a proper Devil May Cry 5. We would get 2 games. Fans of the Devil May Cry series would be satisfied, and we would get a new game along with a new IP to look at. If it ended up being terrible, then we would still have Devil May Cry 5. And if it didn't end up being terrible, well, then we'd have 2 games. Everybody wins. Instead, they chose to use the name of an established franchise on a game that barely resembles the source material. The game gets caught between these 2 worlds, both trying to be different, but also trying to be the same. And it just doesn't work. Fans of the series are not satisfied, and a cesspool of negativity surrounds the game. This whole thing from the very start was completely avoidable. It's been a PR nightmare. Fun to watch, certainly, but I can't help but wish there was a way to make this whole thing right. You know, something just happens, and then everyone's happy and the franchise is saved. I don't want to see another franchise go down like this. I've already lost too many, some of them recently. I mean, what more could possibly be done? It's not as if the fans aren't making their voices heard. Never before have I seen this amount of pure rage about a game release before. Even if Capcom were to address the fans, what could they do now? I mean, the game's gonna come out, what could they do? At this point, it's a train wreck, and I don't think anyone can stop it. It's inevitable. That makes me sad, because I really like Devil May Cry. It's a good series. What a rotten way to die. But then again, you never know. Maybe in a couple of years, we'll finally get Devil May Cry 5. And maybe, just maybe, that same year, we'll get Mega Man Legends 3, and a glorious return to form for Resident Evil, and Metroid 5, and a new Star Fox game that's 95% on-rails R-Wing missions, and a new F-Zero, and Chrono Break, or whatever they're going to call the next Chrono game, and a good Star Wars game. Flight Simulator would be preferred, but I'll also take Battlefront 3. And a console-quality 2D Zelda game. That one's just for me, because I know you guys probably wouldn't like that. And as long as we're at it, get me God Hand 2 and a brand new Katamari game. Yes, all of that in 1 year. Then I would be satisfied. A man can dream. Have a good day, everyone. See you next time. Still a soul for a second chance.